All right, everybody, welcome in to the season finale of Football and Random Things. I'm Connor Ferguson here with Jeff Woody and Colin Newell. Got everything from the weekend to talk to you guys about the Liberty Bowl. We're going to get right to it in a second. First, I do have to give a shout out to our presenting sponsors, Wiffles Hybrids. They've been with us all season. We appreciate them.
They didn't drop us.
They did not.
They didn't drop us. That's something to be commended.
I'm kind of shocked.
They must not have actually listened to the show, because if they heard the dumb stuff that we like, the rabbit holes that we get down,
the random,
they would have said, you know what? Or maybe they're just really trusting people. I think it's that they're just good people.
It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Your ad reads have been pretty spot on off.
You think so? I figured that's why they would drop us, because I go to a different tab on the website every time, and I just find
that's
one.
good. They talk about everything.
Their website's just filled with ad
information.
At Wiffles Hybrids, we realize it's not just one big thing we do differently than our competition. It's all those 100 little things we do just a little bit better that make all the difference. That's Wiffles Hybrid. Plant your independence. I think last week I said plant your future. That was Iowa State ad read getting in the back of my head. So apologies to them. I do want to say thank you to all of the kind people I met, and I probably told you guys very adamant that I would not remember your name. But I had 15 or 20 people across the weekend come up and compliment our show specifically.
It was cool to interact with Cyclone fans. I mean, obviously them coming up and talking to us is, I don't know, I thought it was really cool from kind of one of my first experiences besides at some games this year to interact and hear that people are liking what we're doing. So that was a lot of fun, and there's a lot of diehard Cyclone fans out there that are just great people.
Mr. Big Shot, Colin Newell over here signed an autograph.
Oh my God.
Whoa. You saw that?
You were like 10 feet away from us. Yeah.
I mean, that was his mom, though.
Yeah. My mom doesn't count. No, I actually gave that kid my towel after the Texas game in 2021.
Oh, nice.
I didn't really remember that, but he remembered it. So that was kind of cool to be able to interact with that guy for a little bit.
That is kind of fun, because I remember after the Kansas game, the one that was like 0 degrees.
Yeah.
I was like my 5th pair of gloves that year, and you can just practice gloves, and I ended up just giving my gloves to somebody in the stands, and like 5 years later they were like, hey, after the Kansas game, like you getting whatever. It was like the kid who at like the time was like 8, and now they were like in high school, and it was like, oh my God, wow, that is, time flies. But yeah, it's kind of cool that, like, to me, to us, like, you don't remember doing that, but to somebody on the other side of it, it's just such a huge deal. So I always think it's really cool. Like, I don't know if you feel the same way. Like, if someone had that experience and they remember it and it matters to them, come tell me, because I might have forgotten about it. And
I know a kid that got your gloves. Didn't know your name at the time because he was like 8 years old.
Okay.
And he showed them to me down the road, and I was like, well, what did he look like? And he goes, he was white. And I was like, I'll pull up the roster. It's probably Jeff Woody.
Hold it down.
All he knew was you were a running back, but I'm pretty sure we had it narrowed down pretty well.
Okay.
I think Jeff needs to like try them on to see if they were the fit or.
Yeah.
I'll just make sure I don't take my blood pressure medication before that.
Yeah.
Or my arthritis medication.
Does that give you big hands?
I think that it's a O.J. Simpson joke.
Oh,
is what that was.
I just
really missed that
one. Well, I didn't.
Really missed that
I never
one.
watched the
Also-
OJ case.
Also, I didn't watch. I was 4. Like, I didn't watch. It's just like
I
being
haven't gone back and
aware
watched
of
it.
things.
Yeah, no. Well,
Oh,
that's bad on me.
Yeah,
I call it Newell that one for sure.
Yep.
Whatever. Jesus.
All right,
You
back
tell
to
me you're
Iowa
gonna
State
miss it more.
football here.
All right. Well, that was. I was trying to avoid talking about the game a little bit because not many people really want to hear about the game. But like Memphis' offense was completely.
What we're going to talk about though is the future too.
We can talk about that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think there's also some, there's it's the expression, it's never as good as it seems, it's never as bad as it seems.
That's what I was just going to say.
1000% applies to this. So running game, 0 yards, not great at all. But at the same time, Rocco threw for what, 450? Because Memphis,
cool record, right?
Yeah. So Memphis sold the farm to stop the run, and Rocco was able to. I mean, I think Iowa State was still like 7.7 yards per play, which is still really good. Like, so offensively, they, if a team is going to put, they didn't, but if a team's going to put 10 in the box, you can't be super mad that you didn't run for 0 yards if you threw for 505 touchdowns. Yeah. So like, you're kind of taking what the defense presents. The problem is that they got down so fast, so early that it felt worse than it was, because they still scored. I mean, it was the end of the first quarter where they had 0 points or like maybe 1 touchdown at the end of the first quarter, and they end up ripping off a few more touchdowns after that. And it offensively was good enough to win. Defensively, it wasn't, but like it feels worse because you couldn't match Memphis. So, I mean, yeah, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems.
I feel like what really hurt too was that field goal right at the end of the half, the fake kneel down, and they get, you know, they put themselves in a position where it's like when you answer, like when they do that right before half, it's like, oh shit, we were about to get to halftime at this, and now it's like, all right, add 3 more points onto this.
And also, I'm gonna, like, for the sake of while we're doing it, that is some super Bush League stuff.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Super Bush League stuff.
That made me so mad.
So here's the thing, and like a lot of times, you know, I've heard people talk about it, and they're like, "Oh, first goal is to win." All right, cool. Yes, your first goal is to win, and technically speaking, that works. Now, here's the thing: you're coaching this team next year as well. Yes, coach, right? You think the end of the half is going to happen at some point when you're trying to take a knee? Do you think other teams aren't going to watch film? So if you're a defensive lineman or a linebacker and they go to take a knee, I'm not going to take it easy on you. In fact, I'm going to try and hit you in the belly button with my shoulder pad as hard as I can to knock you over. And if the referee tells me to back off, I can say, last year they ran a fake out of this. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to force the gap, and I'm going to try and almost kill your quarterback if you do that. So every single time they go to take a knee next year, he's putting his quarterback and his offensive lineman at risk for facing that for BS. Like, and the thing is yes, congratulations. It was a successful play on that one. But so how this works too. So you're the center. So you're the one that's literally right next to where they're going. They would usually ask They would usually ask you or the quarterback, right? The referee's going to come up. Is it the head? I don't remember if it's the back judge or the head official who's going to come up
judge normally,
and is going to ask, you guys taking a knee? And you or Brock are going to say, yep, taking a knee. They then turn to the defense, say, ease up, we're taking a knee. Like literally the official turns to the defense and says,
take it easy.
Take it easy. We're taking a knee. This play doesn't really matter. We're taking a knee. And when that happens, it's sort of like if you're at there's a skirmish, you're at a bar fight, cops show up, cops turn around to this group, party B, and they go, hey, fight's over, we're good. Party A flies over the cop and punches you in the face. They're not better fighters. You were literally just told by the governing body to stop. So it's such Bush League to run that. And again, it's fine. Like, yes, you won, but you're now putting your team, your offensive lineman, your quarterback at risk every single time you go to take a knee next year.
Yeah, I would hate to be the center for them next year because he's just gonna get blown up
every time.
Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, just
every single time,
straight in as hard as you can, line 4 guys up over him, and
yeah, it's like you're defending, defending a quarterback sneak.
Yeah,
he's gonna get screwed.
Yeah,
every single time. That is such.
I feel like that's something that you see in like high school.
Yeah,
or like a middle school game. Like, oh, we're down by 27 points, and we're gonna act like we're gonna need the ball here.
Yeah,
like,
and like there's a different side of it. So like the fake spike, that's different. Like the fake spike, that's still a play that's meant to be going, and you as a defense are trying to prevent yards actually being gained. So like in a situation where a fake spike is going to happen, defense is preventing something. The offense is trying to drive. Defense is recognizing they're trying to drive. A fake kneel down, it's admitting, let's take this to the end of half, or let's take this to the end of the game, whatever it is. It's no longer trying to win the game. I'm not trying to advance versus a fake spike. So like fake spikes, fair game. Go for it. Like 100%. That's not Bush League at all. That's trying to like catch something. You listen to...
It's literally ESPN's website.
Oh, sure. But like it's so you
watch
have
Netflix.
Yeah. Fake spike, fair game. Fake kneel down, total BS. Total BS.
Yeah, and I feel like people like, I don't know. That was just like one of those situations where you're like, is that really like how you want to play the football game?
Yeah.
Like, for exactly what you said, like they literally come up, the ref comes up to you and is like, hey, are you taking a knee? Yep. Okay. Hey, defense, rest take, or they're taking a knee. See you after the half.
Yeah.
Well,
and then everybody just stands there.
The crazy part to me is like learning that exact sequences and stuff like that over the years. And like when I was a kid, like that would be on SportsCenter and celebrated for at least a minute.
Yeah,
Just look at the brilliance of this. That everyone thought they were kneeling.
Yeah, they faked them out.
Yeah, they
so I was like raised to find no issue with that.
Yeah,
and just be like, you got to be ready for that as a defense, especially your second level. But I mean, obviously, what you guys just said is the devil's advocate to that.
Yeah, so now they don't get any easy knees for the rest of the year. Like for all of next year, they're not going to get any easy kneel downs.
No.
So like, and I would imagine here's another thing too. This is like the Lions Cowboys thing that happened. One of the like Lions got screwed. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, that was
Lions got
crazy.
super screwed. But one of the reasons why Lions got super screwed was because before the game, every head coach or coordinator, whoever's the one that's in charge of special teams, has a conversation with the referee, and there's these weird odds and ends plays that you're going to have. So like if you have a fake field goal, if you have a gadget play that you're going to run in a 2-point conversion or whatever, like Rhodes would almost, he would have like a sheet of paper. Like,
you tell
like
them exactly what you're going to do, what it's going to look like, how
exactly,
it's going to be.
almost like a notebook. Like you literally just going to say, okay, so we're going to line up our tackles over here, and there's going to be 2 wide receivers that are on this side. Then we're going to break that motion. We're going to move it to this, and this. So that you then run that through to say, is this going to be something that's legal? Where are the problems you see in this? And then the referee will be like, hey, just make sure that this wide receiver that moves over here is off the ball. And like, they'll just make sure that they give you these little things before every single game next year, because the officials are, again, tell the defense, chill. Every single game next year, head coaches that are playing Memphis will now go up to the officials and say, last year in the bowl game, they went to take a knee and they ran a fake, they faked a knee to they actually ran a handoff. So most of the time we're going to back off, but today against Memphis, we're not going to back off because they have shown a propensity to run fake kneel downs. So he just removed, again, the entire season next year, removed the protection from the kneel down for the sake of winning that, or to getting 20 yards at the end of a
That was
half.
3
in a bowl
points
game.
in the end of a half of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl,
Again,
which
dumb.
might have won him the game.
It's
quite
such
honestly.
such bush. And the other, here's another random thing as far as like talking about getting screwed. One of the reasons why Campbell was mad because the broadcasters weren't super sure. Technically speaking, that should have been a delay of game on the offense or on the kicking team.
Are you talking about the practice kick?
The practice kick.
Okay.
You're not allowed to actually go through the entire motion. So if a timeout is called, the icing the kicker thing, like don't ice bad kickers. Like, yeah, don't do that. Yeah. But you want to, if you call a timeout and the timeout is acknowledged, you can't actually go through snap, hold, kick, which is why most of the time you'll see the snap hold can happen and the kicker will sort of like go through the motions and like just kick on air just to kind of mentally take that rep. But you can't actually kick the ball. It's sort of like...
And they did.
And they did. And so that what Campbell was losing his mind about and the broadcasters weren't sure, that technically should have been a delay of game to make a 48-yard field goal into a 53-yard field goal, which is way out of that kid's range. Yep. So that's what Campbell was all mad about, which should have been the proper application of the rule. But
and if I'm Matt Campbell, I'm fuming and I'm yelling at the ref and I'm making sure he remembers that he screwed up, and I completely get it. But I've been watching football for 25 years, and countless amount of times I've seen practice kicks.
Yeah,
and they don't get.
Well,
flagged.
it's actually it's a rule that they just recently changed.
Yeah,
it's not something.
these new clock rules have opened up a can of worms.
Well, it's
let me tell
been
you.
I bet like 3 years.
It's been 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
but
Gotcha.
it's fairly recent that's been in. And so one of the
That makes a lot more sense to me
because what the NCAA was trying to get away with is that practice kick, and then also letting coaches stand next to the referee and then
right before the snap.
wait for it.
Timeout.
Yeah.
Like they would like try and avoid that. So they're basically trying to say, if you're going to call timeout with enough in advance, and then trying to prevent that kicking, and they have to get the ball back, and the game slows down, and then they have to track everything down and whatever. Yeah. So that's what he was all mad. So the end of the half was a BS call on the fake kneel down again, which is going to screw his center and his guards for the entire next year, and should have been a delay of game. But it's also don't put yourself in that position. Don't get down 19-0. Like you can be mad about it, but also don't be down 19-0. End of story. Tackle better.
And Hennigan had 10 incompletions during the game, but you could have told me it was like 3, and I would have believed you. That kid, that Memphis quarterback, was
seemed
insane.
like he was really in rhythm, was able to kind of do what he wanted.
Oh, like
to.
the 70-yard touchdown. I mean, the receiver didn't have to change any part of his movement to catch the ball; it just landed right in his arms.
Yeah,
like,
he played well. I was really impressed with him. Really, really impressed with him. I thought it was. I mean, the Memphis fans were pretty into the game as well. Like there was some actually sitting right in front of us, and they were. I mean, they were all nice people, but they were like. Everyone that I walked outside of the football stadium was like, oh, you'd talk to them, whatever, and they'd be like, I'm a Memphis basketball fan. I don't care about the football game. But, like, those people who were in the stadium were, like, season ticket holders. Like, they were diehard Memphis football fans. So it was kind of crazy to see, like, the stark difference, like, that someone just, like,
2017, they didn't, like, because I was there as a fan sitting in the stands, and they didn't wow me with like noise or anything, but all of them like really nice, especially for the crap that was coming out of my mouth in our section. We made some good friends with some Memphis people. But they were the energetic fan base on Friday.
and the
Like,
energetic
it was-
team.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
And they blew that out of the water.
You could
for
tell
5
from
years ago.
time zero, from kickoff, Memphis was more excited to be there than Iowa State was. Point blank, flat out.
And that's not the same as effort.
Yeah.
Two separate conversations.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're full motivation, you're playing against. That's why the Iowa State game is always like, it's as physical
bloodbath.
as bloodbath as it is because you can be at full effort and you're trying your best, but then you get that extra like rocket fuel of extra energy, and that kind of makes it happen. Of hate or like, I need this to happen. They just, whatever. Like that kind of fuels everything.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, Colin. I'm curious about this because like Matt Campbell is the greatest coach in Iowa State history. But if there is a chink in his armor, as far as like relative to his own standards, it's coming off of a break, whether that's start of the season, after a bye, or bowl games, not as good relative to his standards as it is. I mean,
he has 1-0 off the bye this year.
Yeah, this year. But like I'm curious. I'm sure they are probably doing some troubleshooting on that as well. Like, because Campbell at the end of the year, at least to my mind, does a full deep dive, retrospective. What went well, what went poorly.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're addressing it. But why do you think, from having played there, that it's a little bit different? Because you guys you kicked the shit out of Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl, so it's not necessarily totally apples to apples. But like, why do you think that's the case?
I've thought about that. I really don't know. First of all, it's hard to know because that's what I was in for 5 years, right? So like, I don't know anything else. I never saw anything else. I never felt anything else. It's never a lack of preparation. It really is one of those things that I don't know what the right answer is to it.
Can I offer something at least on bowl games?
Yeah,
But
go for
this
it.
calendar and like signing day in the middle of this crap, like, I would not be shocked. I mean, you're putting your focus on getting all those kids to commit and sign, right?
There's a lot of things that you
There's so many moving parts to that. I don't envy any coach that is going through it. Then you have to turn around and prepare for the bowl game. So I almost think and I'm not saying Iowa State specifically is doing this, but you can easily overlook something when you chop your preparation in half. You don't really have a month to prepare. They had a week to prepare after signing day got taken care of.
I understand what you're saying there, but how long does the team normally have?
Oh, you normally have a week.
You normally have a week.
Completely correct.
So it's like,
But and there's people like, we had 28 days and this is what we came out with, and it's like, no, that's not realistic to say at all.
well, that's not even like, as we talked kind of before, like it's like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks that you spend on like, hey, Iowa State's going to play Memphis. How do we do this?
Right.
A lot of time is spent on, hey, Iowa State, we need to be better.
Yeah,
as
you
Iowa
still
State.
have more overall.
Yeah,
For sure.
So sure.
It's no,
Yeah.
I'm not specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying. I just don't think that's really.
I'm not trying to build in an excuse.
Yeah,
like
right.
it's okay
Yeah.
they lost because signing day is on.
Yeah,
December
no,
20th.
100%. A young team, all these experiences are going to be different. You haven't been through them before.
Is that game different if there's not a 70-yard touchdown on the third play of the game?
I think so.
Or
You
if they convert the fourth down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, either one, yes. But I have another kind of sort of theory, and I don't know if this is necessarily true or not. It's just
Thank you. That was bothering me.
there's a
I
fuzz
don't
on
want
the
to be
table.
weird.
But one of the things I think the Campbell staff does such a good job of player development that I wonder if that the focus towards player development in the long term generally serves them better. But on breaks, when you're focusing so much on development, it's not quite towards the aim of winning the very next game. But en masse, you can't say that it's any wrong approach. So like, I don't know, it is one of those things. And also before someone's gonna be like, yeah, Matt Campbell sucks. I would also like to qualify this by saying again, even I would bet if you take Matt Campbell after breaks, even first few games of the year, after a bye, bowl games, and you stack that record up against every coach that's ever coached at Iowa State, it's still probably better, or if not, maybe behind like Earl Bruce, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so it's still really, really good. Like it's just relative to the standard that we expect of October, November Iowa State when they're going consistently and you're in that rhythm. Iowa State in October and November, if there's not a bye, I mean, they're winning most of those games.
Yeah.
And just after a bye, start of the season, bowl games, I don't know. I would imagine that's going to be something that's probably looked at again.
I think our defense is so unique too that we face, like being Iowa State's defense. So when you like coming off of fall camp, what did you see entire fall camp?
Oh, that's true.
Iowa State's defense.
That's true.
So you're going in and seeing something that's so unique and so different, and then all of a sudden you're going to be seeing something that's going to be a little bit different. You know,
And on the flip side of that, other offenses are going to have additional time to figure out what this is going to be like,
Yes.
so that you can see this odd defense, and you have 2 weeks to prepare for this odd defense instead of like 4 days.
yes, yeah, and that's just it. You know, they get that extra time to say, hey, how has people exposed Iowa State's defense? How have they done this? How have they done that? And there's still nobody I'd rather have than John Haycock to lead that
100%.
defense to be able to do it. But I mean, time is certainly of importance, and we all know that, especially in football. There's another week to break down, hey, what are their tendencies on this down distance? Or, hey, if we stay ahead of sticks, what do we got to do?
Or
So,
if we get this number, if number 21's in the game and we can formation him to be in the slot, let's do that. Let's make sure that we get a one-on-one here, there, whatever.
Yep.
So it gives you
Yeah.
some more time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one of those interesting things. I also think, like has been echoed on, I think a lot of the other Iowa, like Williams and Bloom and, posts and stuff like that. Bowl games are not indicative of the season, nor predictors of the next season.
Florida State.
I mean, yeah, Florida State got beat by 100,000 points,
Yeah.
and they went undefeated prior. Now, great, would that have happened if everybody was healthy? They probably still wouldn't have won against Georgia, but it wouldn't have been
It would have been a close game.
that.
I
And
do
so,
believe
like,
that.
TJ Tampa not playing, that changes everything schematically. I mean, there's a whole lot that are different. So, like,
Malik Verdon not playing.
Malik Verdun not playing. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, yes, it was not fun to watch, but that doesn't change what the expectations for next year can be for this team, especially with everybody that's coming back.
I feel like I've already moved on super quick because it's like, holy crap, this team it's everyone's returning next year. I mean, you're losing 4 or 5 guys maybe that were contributors.
It's really like 4 guys. It's like Easton Dean, TJ Tampa, Gary Vaughn, and Chase Contreras. Those 4 are really the only guys that played significant snaps, significant minutes, that you're really going to lose. Like, I think Aiden Bitter's gone, I think, and he was like a rotational receiver. But that's pretty much it. Like, most people are going to be back on like the 1, 2s, and 3s at pretty much every position.
And we just get an opportunity to build depth too. Like, I mean, in the world we live in, like, the portal's a real thing. Like, there's still going to be somebody, I'm sure, that we go out and pick up that's going to be a contributor at some point.
They've put out offers to 2 pretty big, one Penn State wide receiver, Donald Driver's kid,
And then the
Ohio
State
State one,
Yeah.
Bryson Rogers, that is Rocco Beck's high school teammate.
Yeah.
They've also extended offers to 2 defensive backs as well. So
I think that I think that's going to be a real thing. Like, it's honestly kind of cool to see like Rocco's interactions with them on Twitter too. Like, dang, like this dude's actually out here going and getting some people. Like, we all know how great he is, and we've seen that, but like, it's bigger than just the Iowa State bubble almost too. Like, he's able to go out and like obviously had the relationship with this guy, but
did you see he got gifts for all his offensive linemen?
I did see that. That was
Brock
cool.
Purdy ever do that for you?
He cared about us. He cared about us. But a Christmas gift, we never got Christmas gifts, but he definitely took care of us in other ways for sure.
Good on him.
Yeah.
No, I was going to ask if you could. I want a fan submitted question for kicking it. I want to know where Chase Contreras ranks all time on Iowa State kickers.
Okay, noted. Aiden, you want to?
You just asked Grant.
Store that one. But yeah, I think interesting. So now, like, turning the page from the bowl game a little bit, because I don't think there's much more meat to squeeze off that bone.
No.
The only thing I was going to say was if I was coaching in the second half, I would have ran one play and it was just pass to Jaden Higgins.
Yeah, dude was
That's the
blowing it
only
up.
thing I would have done.
Well, so that's the thing. Like, again, offense was like 7.7 yards per play or something like that. I forget what that was. At last I checked, like midway through the 4th quarter. So it might have changed from that, but still good enough. Like, that is good enough to win. Rocco throws for a zillion yards. Schematically, they were able to find holes in the defense that just ran out of time.
Yep.
They just put themselves in too big of a hole to try and dig themselves
I do
out
want
of.
to say on the new clock rule thing, and people were getting frustrated this season when I was writing about it and stuff because Iowa State, it seemed like they weren't going fast enough. They had the tempo there for sure. Like, they looked way better at installing plays, calling them, getting them in and everything, the things we were pointing out that this is an issue.
So, like, going forward, using that as like a jumping off point, there's a few things that I think it's certain. I don't want to say like a wish list, but like things that I would expect them to address. One, this was Shieldhouse's first year calling plays.
Impressive.
Really
like, impressive first year.
Ever. And so you not only are you calling plays for the first time, you're overhauling the entire offense halfway through the season, getting a freshman quarterback to be as comfortable with where he is, getting a left tackle who had played 2 years of football, 0 at a college level except 1 year at JUCO, I think, and you have a true freshman guard. You have breaking in a center for the first time. You have a freshman running back, another freshman running back, a freshman tight end, like
A freshman quarterback.
freshman quarter. I mean, there's so much new that happened. And so I think one of the things they're going to go back to is if you're talking about when you need to go fast, they need to have a better system of being able to go fast. That's not something that's on like the cutting room floor when you're in the middle of the season. Like you're looking at how do we make sure that we know where Rocco knows where the ball is going to go. We know who we're blocking. We know where the routes are going to be, all that kind of stuff. So now when you have time and space over the offseason, most of their plays came in via the wristband, which is fine when you're going at the tempo you want to go. But when you're trying to speed through it, that's going to be, it's a little bit harder because everybody has to like look down, read the play, make sure that it's the same, get lined up, and it's just slower than what you're going to be going through. So I think that's one thing. It's just making sure that the play calling tempo when you want to go fast can go fast. Like that's my guess.
I will say I'm a huge fan of the wristband. So I really am for the fact that Jim Harbaugh can't pick those signals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there is so much of that goes on in college football as far as identifying signals. The number of times we would hear stuff like coaches will watch our sideline and like people would have a pretty damn good idea of what we're going to run as well as far as pass or run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that right there is a huge advantage. Like, hey, as a defensive lineman or a linebacker, can I go get after and hit my hole, or do I got to drop into coverage? Like that, if you can eliminate one side of those things.
Yeah.
And
you're saving yourself 2.5, 3 seconds.
yeah, so the wristband, I'm saying like the wristband is
Yeah,
like,
and
I really like that, but I absolutely understand
Yeah.
what you're saying. It's like, I wish we did, or I know we do, but having the ability to do some signaling
Well,
in
and there's-
situations where it's,
not even signaling, like when we would go fast. So with Herman, when we'd go fast, we call it jet tempo. And so whenever we do, it was jet wristband. So like they would signal in a number, whatever that number was in the wristband. And so you'd have just one panel in the wristband was your jet card.
Yeah.
So like you're going jet 7, jet 7, jet 7, and you know, whatever it's
And
tray
then get up
left,
and go.
tray left 861, sail X corner, something like that. Like, got it, done. And so then, and the reason why it's slower is because like you have to fit pretty much your entire playbook on like 2 8.5 5.5 by 3 note cards.
Yep.
So the font is really small, or it has to be by necessity. But like if you're going to do this, you have 3 panels. You have the outside panel, and then if you flip it up, you have the inside panel, and then the one that's contacting your wrist. I would imagine one mechanism you could use is have one of those as your jet tempo panel.
Yeah.
That like, hey, whenever we want to go fast, you're going, jet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you just check that one panel that's bigger font, smaller numbers, easier formations to get to when you're going fast. Like you're not going to have your 3 tight end set on there. So like I would just stuff like that. Like you can keep the wristbands and you can keep just what's a better mechanism when we want to go fast? Can we?
Yeah.
Like, but again, that's Shieldhouse's first freaking season as a play caller.
well, not only that, but you have a new offensive line coach, a new running back coach, a new receiver coach, and a first-time OC. Like, that's pretty impressive, the fact that we were able to go out there and execute as well. Like, and they're all pretty darn young.
Yeah.
Like, there's not too many gray-haired dudes in that room, if any, besides maybe some quality control guys. But
yeah. So I would say that for me, like offensively, is one thing that I would imagine they're going to go through is how do we go faster when we want to go faster, and then offensively, getting a better fit, square peg, square hole in the running game, because you lose. I mean, Norton and Sanders were the guys that were most of the time carrying the ball up until the snow game when Abu became the guy. Well, then Abu really had one game starting, like going and 2 because Kansas State, but really one game starting.
Yeah.
Maybe Abu and Hansen see things slightly differently than Norton and Sanders did based on what the offensive line is able to do. So you have to marry those two. Like, what's the offensive line good at? And what does our running back see? Can we have both of those things exist at the same time? Like in basketball example, does our point guard like to stay, is he a dribble drive guy, or is he like to facilitate things from the outside?
Yep.
Okay, well, if he likes to facilitate things from the outside, we don't have any shooters, then we need to find a way to do better ball screens so we can get, whatever. Like all this stuff can exist, but you have to match personnel A with personnel B and then make that scheme match. So I would imagine this offseason, again, first year coordinator, ton of turnover from all the players. You lose the guy, and everything's come back. That's another thing, like offensively, is just matching the running scheme of what does our offensive line do really well and what does Abu see really well, and or if our offensive line blocks gap scheme, which it seems like that's better for them than zone, if they block gap scheme better, we got to get Abu learned up on
Gap
how to see gap scheme because we can't have him see zone better and the line block gap scheme better. And now we can't they don't match.
Yeah.
So like, that's another thing. Those two things offensively are because Rocco and the receivers and the tight ends,
Phenomenal.
no notes, keep doing it.
Phenomenal.
And
But
you had
run
this-
game is making sure those two things match. That to me is going to be on the offensive. Like, what are we going to do in the offseason to get better?
You had this necessity to what everyone that Colin mentioned to come together really quickly and do things, then switch on a dime in the middle of that and figure out a different way to do things than you just learned for the first 3 weeks of the year.
And then switch on a dime again when you lose your top two running backs and another guy comes in for the running game.
Yeah.
Now you have an entire offseason to grow and you've got 20 out of 24 guys coming back.
And your top two running backs coming back, top fucking 9 offensive linemen. I mean, how many?
Yeah.
I would shout out to Jared Hufford.
Yeah, Hufford's coming back officially.
Yep.
Big.
But like really, it's like you're too deep on the offensive line. The whole too deep comes back.
Jake Bremsberg, Grant Tribe.
And they're bringing in
Schreiber and Remsburg are gone, but
they're bringing in 4 guys in this recruiting class
Yeah.
for the line.
so there's I mean,
And there's gonna be some new faces and new places. That's a prediction just on how Clanton coaches. They don't have bona fide positions, and I think we've talked about that.
except like guys like Miller and Neal aren't gonna.
They're tackles.
They're tackles. Like pretty much everybody else
Yeah.
are gonna be floating inside of there.
Yeah. No, I think it's a huge offseason. And not only that, but like these coaches that came into the system and were support for Shilas, this is the first time that they're seeing the offense that he wants to run.
Mhm.
They're learning the communication style he has, the coaching methods he uses, the scheme he runs.
Not
so
only
like they're
that-
having to then learn it real quick and then go teach somebody else it. So like
And not only that, like even so, Shieldhouse first time coaching, guys first time coaching with him. He needs feedback on what you're seeing. You know, Clanton's on the field talking with the offensive lineman. How does Shieldhouse want that communication? What's
Relayed,
the best
yeah.
way to get that information relayed? How do we get this? Who does he want to hear from? How much does he want to hear? What notes does he? All that's brand new.
Yeah.
All of it's new.
Yep. Yeah. No. So I think it's crazy impressive, offensively the year that they had, and truthfully this team, like 20 guys coming back is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like truly the sky is the limit in my opinion. Like the fact that NIL didn't completely destroy Iowa State is sweet. Like it's a huge opportunity for us to actually go out there and get a better team, but also then like, hey, it's also another year for these coaches to have another year actually together. Like obviously the defensive staff is like, they know how each other thinks, how each other communicates, all that stuff. But offensive guys, like all being new in different positions, like how are they going to be able to come together this offseason and really like, I think we'll see the biggest jump, truthfully, offensively
I
this
think so
coming
too.
season.
Yeah, and I'm the only thing, and defensively then is from a player standpoint. I mean, it's been talked about plenty. You need to be able to get after the passer better.
Yep.
Now, what does that look like? Now, you might not have the dudes to do it. Like, and you probably can't go get it. I mean, Will McDonald doesn't grow on trees. So like maybe like
And it costs a lot of money.
yeah, but maybe like you have guys like Ike Ezeagu and Trent Jones and like Samuel Same. Like maybe you have guys like that are going to develop over this offseason that can be, because when Will first started, it was like, it's third down, buddy, go get him. Like it was just that until he got to be a senior. Maybe you have one of those guys develop that's from the outside of that, but maybe you don't. And if that's the case, and you don't have a guy that can go get the quarterback, how do you do it? Because you can't not. Like that's a thing defensively. There's two things to me that the defense has to do a better job of. One is to get after the quarterback. Maybe that's like, I doubt they totally changed their defensive scheme, but Caleb Bacon might have been your best true pass rusher.
Yeah.
He's a middle linebacker. Well, what happens if you then make it sort of 3-4-ish where you're like Von Miller is technically also a linebacker.
Yep.
So maybe you can have him playing as a pass rush defensive end some of the time, or he's an A-gap rusher. And instead of being a true zero nose, you put Dom Orange off to one side and he can function, what things can you tweak if you don't have a guy that shows up to be the next Will McDonald, Jaquan Bailey? And then the second, what's that?
Yeah, even if it's just a package, right? Like not an everyday thing, like not an every down play, but like, hey,
Third
second
and
and
11,
long, third and 7+. Like, hey, we know that Caleb Bacon's our best pass rusher, and we need to get home here.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we then set him up? Who's their weakest pass blocker?
Yeah.
It's their left guard.
Yep.
Okay. How do we formation Caleb Bacon onto their left guard?
Yep.
It's stuff like that I think the defense is going to have to do, because you're not gonna not because they did it offensively after Ohio and then the 3-3-5. But you're not going to usually like totally throw the pieces up in the air and overhaul it in the middle of the season. But there are things like this that, like, if they don't have a guy who can be a pass rusher, they're going to have to make some sort of structural tweaks to be able to get better, to get more pass rush without sacrificing the integrity of the back end much. And then the second thing I think the defense needs to do is find depth in the secondary, because when you had Verdun, Freeler, and Cooper, when those three guys were healthy and they could take 75% of the snaps in a game, defense was dominant. But when one of them was hurt and you had to have either Ben Nickel or Jamison Patton or Surgis, like when those guys had to play 80% of the snaps, that's when you got in some serious trouble. And so you have the guys that were backups were good enough to be spot players for 4 or 5 plays on a drive, maybe even a whole drive, depending on formation, who else is out there with them. But Cooper and Verdun and Freeler, I mean, Freeler's built like a tank, knock on wood. He hasn't really been hurt that much except a shoulder. But like Cooper and Verdun seem to get hurt more just because of the positions they put themselves in. One of them's going to get hurt next year. One of those three at some point turns an ankle, whatever. It's going to happen. Like it's just the nature of football. Do you have guys that can come in, and is Patton going to get better? Is Surge going to get better? Are those guys going to improve?
Well, and those safety positions are so unique that they're not like one safety to the other isn't interchangeable. Either. Unless you teach them over this offseason both positions and you feel that they're adequate, then maybe you could have something like that. They have a lot of guys coming in to fit that mold and fit those positions. But once you get them there, are you going to have them learn both positions to avoid a season like this? Because it was like anytime a defensive back is out, it makes all the difference. And the backups can't.
Well, and that was also because of the pass rush too. Like when you don't have a Will McDonald, when you get 4 seconds to throw,
that
versus
probably
having
came off
2
worse
seconds.
on,
I get it. But like if you have 4 seconds to throw versus having 2 seconds to throw, a slight crack in the defense becomes a gash. Versus when you have Will McDonald or Jaquan Bailey or MJ Anderson, like you have guys like that can make the quarterback off his spot, make it a street ball game, or get a sack, or make him even think or feel like he's going to get sacked in 2 seconds. When there's no pressure at all, any deficiency in the secondary starts to become a bigger problem. So I think for me, linebackers, they're going to get better. Like I have very little question about the linebackers getting better because they're all babies except Gary, who graduates. But I mean, even then, I think Gary, because his shoulder was banged up pretty much the whole year, I think they were better when you had like Bacon, Sadowski, and McLaughlin. When those three were on the field, I think that was your best look. They're using guys like Willick, and more younger guys can still play. Very few questions about the linebackers and how much they're going to get better. It's just secondary depth and pass rush. Those are the two things. How do you go about doing that? I don't know. Coach them, develop them, scheme tweaks, but those are the things. Defensive list that I think you're going to be looking at.
I think you hit it. I mean, the safeties, pass rush obviously was a problem. First couple games, we're all like freaking out, like this is awesome. We got some guys that can get after the passer, and it kind of did. It choked down some, but they'll figure something out. I mean, they have always had someone who can get after the passer. They've recruited it well, and I have no doubts that they'll find somebody that will break out and you'll be like, who's this guy?
Yeah. And there's a bunch of guys that are on the roster. I think what's also interesting too, it might not be a defensive end that becomes that pass rusher guy. Dom Orange and J.R. Singleton could be like as an offensive lineman. Your job, you and the guards, your job has to be so much more hold your ground. Because tackles are playing in space.
They got more room to run and can run somebody high where we can't run someone high because we're going to run right into the quarterback if we run them high.
So like if Dom Orange or Singleton, guys like that, and whoever else they're going to be bringing in, if they can be pass rushers where you're forcing the middle up, like when you watch the Alabama-Michigan game in the first half, the defensive tackles for Michigan, when Alabama was just straight drop back pass, they pushed the centers and they pushed the front back, and Milroe, at that point, you can't step into a throw. And if you do it right and you have gap integrity where it's not just one guy who's kicking somebody's ass and everybody else is failing, if you can push the front of the pocket back and then defensive ends just there to capture anything, you can get a sack and it just looks like everyone's squeezing the life out of them because the interior rush is really, really good and your defensive ends can just be there. So that's another, again, that might be the way that they go is they say, hey, between Singleton and Orange, let's focus on getting a pass rush. Hey, Dom Orange, you're 7'3", 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Get a bull rush. Let's develop a bull rush where you can just kick the shit out of a center and push him into the quarterback's lap. And then we don't need Tyler Onyedem to be a 14 sack guy. He can just good enough pass rusher, lane integrity, capture him when he's there.
Well, I think that's a huge thing. Like, if a quarterback can't step into a throw, everything's going to start sailing high. Interceptions are going to, like, there is so much about a quarterback just feeling the pressure. Like, you don't even have to get home. You just have to make him feel it. So he's not sitting there comfy, pitter-patting his feet, looking downfield, playing street ball. Like, oh, you were supposed to run a corner, but hey, that's broken. Let's, whatever it may be. Like, if you just make him be able to feel a little bit of pressure where he can't freestyle at all, like, he has to get the ball out in 2 seconds or else he's going to have his own offensive lineman driven into him. He's going to feel pressure. He's going to have to escape. He's going to have to do something. Like, it changes the game. Like, you don't get that extra, 3 seconds to look downfield and, oh, this guy's just faster than him. He just ran by the D-back or anything like that. So I think there's huge potential for us to be able to get after that position here.
Yeah, I also think this is now brain fart or brainstorming. It's not even saying they're going to do this, but with the personnel that they have, if you have a guy like Dom Orange and you have a guy like Tyler Onyedem, I think Tyler Onyedem, if we were to play a ideal position for him, is a 3 technique.
Yes, I would agree.
He's not necessarily 3 technique. For those that aren't super sure, it's not the guy that lines up directly over the ball. It's the one that lines up somewhere between the guard and the tackle. That's where the 3 technique is.
Bigger body.
Yeah, it's like brain fart. Guy with the dreads, 6'6", played with you.
Any
Wazirike, perfect example. So he's the guy that's 3 technique style. That's his best fit because you're dealing with guards, and when you're longer than a guard with reach but bigger than a tackle, that's sort of where you want to fit.
Yep.
Well, if you have a guy like Caleb Bacon who's going to be a pass rusher, and you can put him on the outside because you have Tyler Onyedem kind of bump in a little bit, and Dom Orange plays off instead of playing a 0 nose where he could get hit by either guard, where he's just lined up directly across the center. He can pop out and play whether it's a shade or even a 1 or a 2 technique in a pass rush situation, and you get Onyedem who can play inside the tackle and Bacon who's now rushing outside the tackle. You have better matchups for everybody. So little things like that you can do where you have an extra pass rusher go to Onyedem's side, stuff like that. That's the things that can happen over the course of the year when they start thinking, how can our personnel best execute this stuff?
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know why I couldn't remember Wazirike's name.
Brain fart.
Yeah.
Old age, man.
Yeah.
Old age.
CTE.
I'm getting there. So it's Saturday, August 31st, their 2024 opener. So 8 short months. Right.
Be here before we know it.
No kidding. Thank you again to everybody who tuned in and everyone who came to Jerry the King Lawler's and had those nice things to say. That will never get old. A lot of the compliments about you guys, not me. So
You're doing a great job, Connor.
thanks, Jeff. I appreciate
You're
it.
unbelievable.
No, you guys make the show. So thanks again to you guys. Thanks again to Wiffles Hybrids, and we'll see you next year. Maybe we'll do a couple off season at some point, but I have no clue what we're supposed to do or allowed to do. So
We'll see what the wind guides us to be.
Time will
that.
tell.
That's how we're ending this.
Go Cyclones.